3 years for this? Like,
No, I do think that they will. Okay, so because of a certain group of individuals, that were in, I think, the producer position for Boruto, they came in during the Sasuke Retsuden arc. They do like doing movies. They like doing movies. They're a big fan of doing movies because of those two particular individuals, whose names I will not bother to pronounce here. It is possible if they're still on board. There's nothing to suggest they're not, but they might not be. If they still are, they might be into the idea of making the final 12 chapters into a film.
the
Which
problem is it doesn't make sense as a film if you're going to count the end of the code arc.
It doesn't make sense into a film at all, and I'm like in the process of like breaking that down, and like I'm gonna make a video about it and try and make it interesting somehow. That's gonna be a challenge, but I do want to. I'm breaking it down, so might as well make it into a video, I guess.
I can't wait for the Cloud Ninja podcast to hype up whatever that movie's gonna be.
But yeah, the possibility they do try and trim it down to a movie. As far as I am so far, I've broken it down. I'm at chapter 77. It is so far real. It's hard to do, but it is actually kind of possible. Runtime wise, if the movie's 2 hours long, it is kind of possible, but you have to trim. You have to trim.
Yeah, but there lies the problem. You have to trim down the arc that was way too rushed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right, but
you got to trim out the first half of the arc, which is fine, and then you have to you don't have room to extend the part that needs extending.
Exactly, which is the problem. And then like, so you'd be making a rushed arc already like more rushed. But it is possible to condense it and not to lose too much of the arc that already existed. There's problems with the arc that already existed, but I'm just saying you can remove parts and it not change too much. I agree. For like example, that.
Chapter 73 can basically be dropped from the movie. You just have a 10-second scene just saying what the mission is, for example. That will save you a lot of time. You can speed up Ada's arrival in the village, chapter 74. But then you get to, like, for example, for this movie, here's the problem. For the movie, you might as well remove Amado's past backstory shenanigan. It doesn't belong in this movie. It does nothing for the movie. It is just a waste of time. Mm-hmm. But for the overarching story, which is what this movie would be theoretically for,
exactly,
you can't just not put that in there.
So
but it can't go in this movie. It is a waste of an hour.
So what I've broken down in this movie is basically, for like this hypothetical film, is that things that are, because obviously with anime movies, they will be readapted hypothetically into the anime. So a lot of the things that would just be cut out here would just be readapted into the anime. Because Demon Slayer, they did it. They got readapted into the anime. Okay. So I'm pretty sure Boruto would get their content readapted into the anime.
See, the problem, the difference with Demon Slayer and Boruto is Demon Slayer had an animation studio to do it. The point of doing the movie is that they can't even do the anime. Yeah.
Ignoring that, though, I feel like you would have to just cut out Amado's backstory. He can explain Shibai cells, I guess. Even that, though, I feel like you have to leave in the Shibai part for the omnipotent stuff.
Yeah,
but you cut out Amado's plan. You just cut out code shenanigans. All the clograms, just not going to be in the movie.
No.
Similarly, I think you have to just cut out the end of the code arc. You just go.
The reason why you can't remove what Amado's explanation is because part of Amado's explanation is what riles up Kawaki. Is what gets Kawaki, like every single thing that people want from me is just always people always want things from me. So, and Amado's backstory is, you can expand on it in this movie, but it is mostly exposition that can be covered in 2 minutes. It doesn't actually take that much time to get through it. My problem is it's a story that I would like to be expanded upon. It's just not possible in a film. So you can keep it in the movie and not waste too much time. But the problem is it doesn't have too much relevance.
Yeah.
Exactly. It has
within the
nothing to
movie.
do with the movie's story. It only has to do with the overarching. That's why I think it shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with the ending of the story of the movie, but it does have something to do with the movie, just not the ending of it. So you can technically remove it, but it would be bizarre too, because it's not like you can remove the amount of confrontation entirely. They have to have the whole Shibai thing in part of his explanation.
Well, I mean, honestly, this is gonna be
How do you like change
in
the dialogue?
universe. This is absolutely ridiculous and stupid. But like, you know how Ada just calls the meeting short? She's like, "Let's call it a day, Shikamaru or Shikadir." She could just right after the Shibai part just be like, "Let's call it a day, Shikadir."
Bro, that's gonna be
I'm
like again
wait.
meme culture. That's gonna be like Hawk Tua being like, "Well, time to go to bed. Good night, guys."
Wait,
Yeah.
that's actually. I'll leave that caveat there, and I'll add that to this makeshift script, because that is a way to trim things down. Because it would take. There's so much dialogue in chapter 75. It would take at least 16 minutes to adapt that whole chapter.
That's what I'm
16
saying.
to
It's just a
17
waste
minutes.
of time.
So like how I get like my estimated times is basically I take into account like directions of scenes, basically how long they usually take to like do establishing shots in the anime and whatnot, and then I read the scenes like natural dialogue like they do in the anime and whatnot when they're like doing dubs and whatnot. So doing that entire chapter would take about 17 minutes to adapt if you don't, even with minimal cuts, because there's some redundant dialogue in the chapter that you can cut, but since most of it's not redundant, you can only remove so much. So in order to adapt it fast, you would have to remove Mado's explanation and have Ada do what you just said.
Yeah.
Now, every code scene past chapter 71 that's cut out. You can't. There's no reason.
No,
to have
I
that
no.
there.
Honestly, you might as well just cut out the first code scenes because I hate to say it, but like chapter
You can't
68
do
through
that, though.
72 in the movie, you're just gonna have the first third of the movie be mostly irrelevant. The only relevant part
it's
is
relevant
Ada
to
being
how
in the
Ada
village.
got to
You
the
also
village.
you would
That's
have to cut
relevant.
out the very final panel, which of the code is one of the 3 last things you see in the Boruto series, hyping up code going into Two Blue Vortex.
Yeah, no, in my all of that's removed. So Code just has to no longer look like he has to look like that side villain in a movie that just gets kicked to the side and no longer is relevant to
He's
the
gonna be the
I don't-
panda
I
from
don't-
the first movie.
I don't know. I just feel like
You can't.
I
cut
feel
out
like
all that
honestly,
code
you
stuff,
have
though.
to
You
just
can't
like
cut it out.
rewrite this movie. You just have the premise. It's weird to honestly.
This doesn't work as a
Okay.
movie. It's
You know
not a
what- you know
good
what-
movie.
This is what they need to do. It's not a good movie. The best thing you could probably do is a cold opening where basically you just start at like chapters. You basically skip chapters 68, 69, and so on. So you're just gonna start. Code is just like with Amado gets his limitus removed, gets beat up by Damon, and Ada comes to the village. It's like the opening basically of the movie, the first 10 minutes maybe, and then that's how you get into the actual room sharing mission arc. You just covered that part. You just really rush that as a cold opening, basically. That's probably the best way to finish the code arc
Really, the only
for
way
this
that
movie
works.
idea.
Yeah.
That could work. I do think that's more sucky though.
Well, no matter what, it's sucky though. But it's also
Yeah.
sucky to spend 30 minutes with this code shit that's completely irrelevant to the arc.
Yeah, let's see what my estimated times are for that. Is it? I
Because
think
that's
you might be
4
right. I
chapters.
think it
It's
is
4
30 minutes.
chapters until you get to 72. 68, well, I guess
13.
68, 69, 70, 71.
So you have
It's 4
12.
Before the arc starts.
You have 12 minutes. You have 10 minutes, and then you have 10 minutes, and then you have 8 minutes for chapter 71 to chapter 68. 68 to 71. No, to 72. So that's 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 13 minutes. So yeah, you can do that in like 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, that's a waste of time. Just do the 10-minute cold opening if you're doing this movie.
Nah, but I would like it to be
I would
less
rather
than
spend those extra 20 minutes making the Boruto versus Kawaki fight in chapter 78 good. Or maybe, I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe have Boruto fight Mitsuki for like more than half a second.
So
Maybe make omnipotence like worthwhile in that movie.
But now Kamui, here's the thing. Is that everyone here realizes how awful and a stinker this movie is gonna be. Which is actually
it's a bad idea.
It's
but it's
why I
idea.
want it, though, out of spite, so that we can tell the audience members who thought the manga was peak in hype how right we were, because the problems are so much more apparent in the movie when they translate way better into this manga format, but it's so much more obvious when you get to the movie, and then omnipotence happens 5 minutes into the closing runtime of the movie with no final fight.
But what if they spin it around to say how that's how proof that the manga was peak, because it like very
Mm-hmm. So other cuts I have is like with stuff with like Sumire and Kawaki. I have cuts with and the entire Himawari and Damon scene that's removed too, because that's not relevant at all.
I know.
And then a lot of these other cuts is just redundant pages that this manga has a lot of.
Yeah,
not
especially
as much,
Jubilee Vortex.
not as many as I thought there were, but quite a bit. Some of these chapters, there's like...
Well, hold on, Saran, actually. You gotta keep in mind, though, if this is a Boruto, especially Jubilee Vortex-inspired movie, you're forgetting the recap. You need to spend at least 45 minutes of the movie recapping things we already know.
So, here, I opened the film...
With recap.
So to open this film, I'm just reading what I put. So to open this film, I would start with Kawaki being asleep in chapter 69 and show quick flashbacks of how we got here. Because I do think that's partly necessary-ish, kind of. Quick flashbacks on how we got here and then cut straight to chapter 68. And adapting the rest of that chapter. So it would cut straight to Boruto in the hospital. Talking to Amado.
And then it would show Boruto and Kawaki on the Hokage Stone Monument as Boruto activates his Jogan.
No, basically, what I said is
how you get around that?
So here's the thing. I said in my script, that was a fever dream.
I'm thinking you gotta do like flashback, like still frame flashbacks of like 2 seconds for half this shit. Like just have Kawaki in the hospital. It flashes back to when Damon reflected his attack and he blew up. Boruto can have a flashback of being stabbed at some point. And then you have your Code versus Damon opening and just get on with it, bro. I'm telling you, don't waste time.
The only way. Yeah.
So
the only way. You can't have fucking Boruto's bullshit scene about how he can control Momoshika's power. No, if there's a scene to remove, not for time constraints, just to remove it, remove
no,
that
I have that scene removed as well.
My god, I'm not watching this movie.
I have that one line removed. I say you can cut that too.
No!
Yeah, I said that you can cut that too.
Worst line of the franchise.
So I said that Kawaki wakes up, and then everything in the ending of episode 293. Remove that entirely. None of that happened. You just act like it never existed, and you just continue adapting the manga.
Honestly, though, at this point, this movie's so bad, I want that to be the opening.
Exactly. Like just for reference,
I want them to like hype up the Jogan. Like I want the Jogan to flicker, like when Boruto loses his blue eye, and then nothing happens after.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just for reference, Saran, just to compare to the last Naruto movie we got, the Boruto movie, what's the cold open in that? It's Sasuke versus Kinshiki for like 4 minutes, and then that's just the cold open. Compare that to this movie's cold open. It just doesn't make sense.
But I'm telling you, bro, that the best option is David versus Co. And it's just like cold open. It's so random, but like it's your best bet.
We just don't see either of them again, pretty
for
much at all.
chapter 73, I have about 10 chapters removed out of the 40. So I was able to condense it that much.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
yeah, quite a bit of that chapter is redundant too.
Yeah. You really don't need. You just need him to say, "This is our mission," and move along. Like,
for the sake of flow, you need some parts still there, but yeah.
I think what
and
they
for
do
the
is they
sake
would
of
explain it
exposition.
as they're showing it, so it's like they're adapting both at the same time.
yeah.
Wait, that's a brilliant idea. I'll add that to my
There's
script too.
something similar where I don't know what I'm thinking of, but there's something that I watched not that long ago at some point in my life.
Wait, that's
that did that.
brilliant. That's a great idea, Ood. Thank you. That's a great way to do that.
Well,
So
thank you.
basically, like while Shikamaru is explaining it, you have Ada
Like
being
Ada
set up.
arriving. Like just combine
Yes,
those two chapters.
yes.
So, and then every
Whoa, that's
nonsense,
great.
stupid
Well, there
fluff
goes my ego.
dialogue, cut that out for like the mission explanation.
Oh no, yeah, I cannot. That's what I mean by
Mhm.
10 chapters, 10 pages removed is a lot.
Yeah.
Out of 40, that's a lot of pages. That's a lot of pages.
But you also got to consider though, in chapter 74, I guarantee Saruna Konohama Mitsuki or whatever regurgitate something about their mission, which they could instead do as a flashback to Shikamaru explaining the mission in the first place.
Yes,
This
that's
is an
why.
example.
That's no. So basically, the reason why there's that many pages missing is because their actions in chapter 74 explain what they're doing already. Not verbally, but just what they are doing, which means you don't need to actually show that on screen. So there's bits and pieces of dialogue that you actually can just connect by removing others, and the dialogue still flows this quite well. So there's parts of the explanation of what they are doing that just don't need to be there. You can just have it be shown in the next
Yeah.
following scenes, which is why I was able to get away with removing all that stuff. But for the most part, chapter 74 can remain mostly intact because it doesn't take long to adapt anyways. It's like 9
You know,
minutes.
I just thought of another thing. Similar to Amado, chapter 76 has a lot of focus on Ada and her true friend shenanigans stuff, which is incredibly important to Ada's character.
Yes, it
But
is.
as far as this movie goes, it's kind of not that important.
Well,
Like,
for the
Ada
sake
and
of making
Damon aren't
Ada-
characters in this movie, they're MacGuffins.
Making Ada, you do have to make Ada an interesting character in order for people to even care. I know. It's gonna be hard in this.
but the problem is,
So
this
Gotta
movie
be.
doesn't work because this art doesn't work, and nothing.
So
like, you're just setting up all these things that will never return in this movie. This is the most not standalone movie I've ever heard of. You can't do this as a movie. It doesn't work.
I'm trying. We're gonna make it work. Or on
I
chapter
mean, like, you
77.
can make it like cinematic and all that jazz, but like at the end of the day, though, you're just looking at like Code, Amado, Ada, all these things. It's just like in a movie, you don't just throw out all these things and never come back to them in a self-contained story that is
Well,
a movie.
It wouldn't
just
be a
do that.
standalone. It wouldn't be a self-contained movie. It'd be a movie
But that's not
meant
how
to be-
movies work. Because even in a movie that's decided to have like a part 1, part 2, the part 1 does stand alone on its own. Like, even though like you have this framework to have a continuation, it does stand alone on its own. Vice versa with a part. For example, like Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame, the movie, while it obviously is designed to continue with the next part, the movie isn't like this thing that makes no sense in the either half.
well, that's not. I'm not done. I don't have to get into that one, but
I
get
mean,
what
whether or
you
not
mean.
you like, but you get the general premise. Like, I feel like compared to this Boruto, I think.
I feel like we're not getting into it because you agree with us. You just don't know how to argue because there's no argument.
No, as in like, yeah, there's like a sense of like a climax and whatnot, but like it was the only line that it makes sense, right? Avengers Endgame makes sense, and it's like it doesn't. But like as a movie, and with what you're talking about, yeah, it makes sense as like a sequel. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think this movie, because like let's say, even for by standards of an anime film, even if you can make this all work, you can. But even if you could make it all work, it would be just not a fun anime movie.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be very fun. It's a lot of talking. A lot of it. It's a lot of exposition. And not that many fun interactions to like really take away from the monotonous stuff of just like a lot of the exposition. That is
Exactly.
mostly set up for stuff that happened.
There you go.
The arbiter of truth. But this movie can't work as like a standalone feature. It has to be something that you watch to then go watch something else. It doesn't work as a standalone thing. But like even I will say though, Infinity War doesn't work as a standalone either. Technically, you can't just watch Infinity War and cop out.
No, I agree in that sense, but what I mean is that you're not just throwing in this weird character backstory just to disappear forever and not even come into part 2 of the movie, and you're not just having this villain setting up this grand plan
stuff that
for
happens in like
imagine in the beginning of Infinity War, you have let's do a different movie.
Well,
the problem is I don't remember like.
Well,
any
Kamui,
of
what
these movies.
Sauron said is just objectively not true. You can go away from Endgame completely fine and feel completely satisfied as the final conclusion. Look at any movie where the bad guy wins in the end, because that's the point. Look at Smile 1. Okay, Kamui, you know that. Did the main characters win there? No, it was utter defeat on every front, every regard. You don't need a Smile 2. It's a continuation, direct continuation in the cold open alone. But it's Smile 1 just is an ending. It's the ending.
And even ignoring that for a moment, so I'm just going off the 2 movies I have the most in my memory of the Marvel series right now. So I've got the Spider-Man movie. I don't remember it's not No Way Home. It's whatever the Homes and Far From Home, and it's the one with Mysterio, the guy with the freaking drones and all that. He's the drone guy. So imagine if in one or the other, pick your poison. At the beginning of Infinity War is just setting up Mysterio, only for him to disappear so Thanos can just be the villain, or vice versa. The beginning of No Way Home, it's just Thanos. He's got the Infinity Gauntlet, and then he just never appears again, and it's all about Mysterio. It's like, what?
Well,
it's weird.
Just for another comparison, just for something that we do have, let's just say Boruto the movie opens with Sasuke fighting Kinshiki and looking up at Momoshiki looking down at him, and then the rest of the movie's about Urashiki. It wasn't even there.
Yeah. And Momoshiki and Kinshiki just never show up again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's not addressed why either. They just don't.
It's just don't.
Well, I do agree, right?
Or make it worse. To make it worse, actually, to make it more accurate, you have Momoshiki say, "I'll be coming to the Leaf Village very soon, Uchiha Rinnegan guy."
Like,
only for him to never show up.
Ko doesn't come back again for 3 years anyways, right? He
Which
doesn't imply that he doesn't imply that he's gonna come back soon after he like leaves. So he is concluded.
Well, no. The real problem is when you try to connect to Blue Vortex in the end of part 1. Because at the end of part 1, he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to go because Ada and Damon are there. The gods can ruin my surprise." And then the omnipotence happens. He's like, "All right, I'm going after Boruto now." Even though he doesn't even know that Boruto left the village, by the way. And he's just going to go after Boruto. And then he comes into the time skip, doesn't give a shit about Ada and Damon. And his surprise attack worked great for that matter. It's just...
Yeah, no, but the whole point is like, the whole thing is like you don't just like have a character show up and then not have them show. But like code implies that he's gonna be gone for a while anyways.
But that's all the more
So-
reason to not have him in the movie.
Actually, Kamui, that's a great point. How/why does Code know that Boruto left the village? And the real answer is because it makes no sense. Because if he knew, then he just would have gone to him immediately once he realized. Just like in the Kawaki arc, or the Code arc, I should say, he went after Kawaki immediately once he left the
Exactly.
village.
If you were to theorize, with all his claw marks and claw grime, he just saw Boruto leaving the village.
Exactly. And he's not
How
going
is it so hard to find him?
He's not going to care if Sasuke's there with him. He went anyways, even though Sasuke was there.
Yeah. And why did it take him a whole year to find him in the first place?
If he knows he's gone, yeah, how's he know? Exactly.
And frankly, how did he ever find out he's gone?
Well, it could be that he had claw grimes with his ear conveniently placed so he could hear Konoha citizens talking about.
Well, it's not going to be claw
Yeah.
grimes. It would be through the claw marks that he places around the village that Kawaki's continually shrinking,
See,
but that Code
But
is there to
here's the
place.
thing. If that's the case, that's fucking cool. Why didn't we get that scene? Why didn't we get a scene of Code ear sticking out of a claw mark, like in chapter, I don't know, 79 or 80, and then he hears someone talking about looking for Boruto and how he left the village, and then Code could be like, all right, I'm going after you now that you've... he could be like, you've left the village. Now's my chance to go after you.
Exactly.
Or something.
That's the
cool.
problem. It's still a problem, even if that's what he does, because he would have had to do that before we see when he knows that Boruto left by the end of part 1.
Exactly. So
Let's
you would
say
have
at
to
the
see
end
it
of part
in
one.
chapter 79 or 80 or something. But
Yeah.
still,
What does Code say at the end of it?
he just regurgitates his freaking thing. He just stands up. It's like, for
You
your
shall
crimes
pay-
of
you
this
shall
feeling
pay
ain't
for
ends
your-
again for me. You shall pay with your life, Boruto. Who is he talking to? He just randomly saying this out of nowhere.
But he doesn't imply here that he knows that Boruto left the village.
But he stood my point is, Code was sitting down, chilling, drinking with Bug, and just yeah, I'm not gonna go to the village, I'm just gonna make some claw grime. Then randomly he stands up and is like, for your crimes of what you've done, I shall kill you myself. Why would he stand up and say that if he's not gonna go look for Boruto now?
When does he mention Anna and Damon?
It's 77. Chapter 77, when he's making the army, he says
Oh yeah,
he
you're
says,
right.
I'd love
I
to
read
watch
that
the surprise, but yeah.
yeah, I read that yesterday. Never mind, I forgot.
Okay.
And
But
then
it's it doesn't
and
make
then
sense for Code to stand up and declare his intent to kill Boruto again if
you
he's not
shall
planning
pay
on
with
doing
your
it now.
life, Boruto. Your crimes for stealing what I hold dear.
See, Kamui,
He's clearly getting ready to do it.
Kamui, I want you to remember this moment for when I make
Notice
Attack on
also
Titan
that-
arguments about things that are shown explicitly for the audience, while directly at the same time being something the character would do in universe. Because that is things I was thinking about earlier. But we'll get to that.
This
in
doesn't
the-
really imply that he's going to do it now. Code
That doesn't make but it
dramatic.
doesn't make sense for him to say this randomly.
No, I agree.
If he's
It
not
doesn't-
going to do it. Imagine he just stands up, yells this, and sits back down for another 3 years. That just doesn't make sense. It's already weird to
No,
theoretically weird for him to say this to himself, but I get it. If he's planning on killing it and he's trying to hype himself up, whatever.
People talk to themselves like this. This does happen. I know.
I know,
done
but
this before.
unless he's going to go after Boruto now, then it is just
I
doesn't
feel
make
like he was just being dramatic and was just venting to himself. He was,
But it's
he's really,
I don't know, bro,
really triggered.
I'm sorry.
No,
Look,
Code is
if you
definitely that
disagree,
type of guy,
we disagree. But you cannot convince me that there's any world where this makes sense.
I'm with Bobby
unless
on
he
this.
plans on going after Boruto right now.
No. Code's the type of guy to vent his frustrations about the world to himself and be like, "All right, I'm done
2
with that."
chapters later, he just got done saying how he's not going to invade the village. And then he's just randomly just going back to this.
He's not
I don't know.
saying that I'm going to invade the village yet or anything. He's just saying I'll go after you, Boruto. He's not implying when. He's not implying at
I
what
know,
time.
but it's
He's not
okay,
implying while Boruto's
it's
in the village. He could be implying when Boruto's outside of the village at any convenient time. It doesn't matter when.
But it's just weird. I don't know. It just
He's just Code is weird. He's the type of guy to vent his frustrations to himself and be like, "All right, time to get back to work." But
no, yeah. Time to go back to sleep. But like,
he's like, "We'll deal with we'll address
okay,
this."
all right. Sorry.
It works.
Would you at least
Okay.
agree it would make more sense if he was saying this as he was getting ready to actually go after Boruto?
Yes, but I just don't agree with the saying that it doesn't make sense at all. Because he doesn't
Well-
give a time frame. He doesn't give like any. He doesn't give anything. He's just venting his frustrations because they have to get in that.
It feels like that's when
Yeah.
he embarked on his journey to find Boruto. That's how it feels.
But who knows when he said this?
Okay.
In chapter 80.
Yeah, as they're paralleling to Boruto and Kawaki, they're just time skipping code 6 months ahead of when they're showing those two at the exact same time.
Actually, yeah.
Okay.
There's
yeah.
6 months time jump there.
Yeah.
I like that interpretation. This is code 1 year later. Say this. I'll take the compromise. I'll take that compromise.
But let's be honest here. When Ikimoto wrote this, he was just like, "Let's just have we just gotta hype up people for the time skip. So let's just have
Yeah,
Code stay
bro.
as
He's like, I didn't do what he
one-liner."
set up. Let me do it on the last page real quick.
But
He's
it doesn't
like-
make sense for code to do that.
No, Code's dramatic. He would definitely vent to something like this.
god.
He is. Code's dramatic. He is.
Where does he do something like this ever again?
When he talks to himself literally after he got beaten by Ada.
Oh god.
But that was
He got
like,
beaten
that would
by
make
Damon.
sense. He was angry and he's
He's
venting
still
to Bugs.
angry.
Yep, well, he wasn't angry in chapter 77.
He is still angry,
He had time.
bro.
He was really
angry.
mad after Damon beat him up. He starts screaming his declaration. Then he goes with Bug to the Ten
You're
Tails.
all right.
and
He
he's
seems kind of
calm as
chill
can
once he
be,
went-
explaining
you're
his
all right
plans.
about that one.
It feels like this. He's only doing this when like in impactful moments. He's not just doing it randomly before sitting back down. It's just not what he's
But
doing.
I do see Code as that whiny guy, though. I do. It just seems right. It just seems right. It just seems right to me.
So you just hate code. That's the problem, eh?
I do. I seems like Jigen, Ishiki, and Ada for the crimes of stealing what I hold dear. You shall pay, Boruto. All right, Bug, let's go to bed. This is like I can see him.
He's not doing that, bro. It's so weird.
continue work
I know
tomorrow.
Ikimoto wants to write irrational villains and blah blah blah, but that's just too weird.
No, let's